Emotionally unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together. Hi, my little loves. How are you? I hope you're good. I am good. I'm pretty tired. Home from Seattle now as of just a little bit ago. And yeah, it was the perfect trip. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And looking forward to doing more of that. So, like I said, I'm pretty tired, so we're going to keep this short and sweet and just read shit off of our guest profile, okay? So, today's guest is Mia Hanks. Mia is a survivor of narcissistic abuse. She was married to a covert narcissist for 29 years and is the author of an award-winning book titled Bridemaid, a memoir. Mia is hoping that her story will help raise awareness about narcissism and help other victims find their voices. This is what she says about herself. I am a survivor of narcissistic abuse. I was married to a covert narcissist for 29 years, and in 2024, I published an award-winning memoir titled Bridemaid. I am passionate about raising awareness of narcissism and helping other victims find their voices and know they are not alone. Narcissism is affecting far too many people today, and so many victims are stuck in these relationships due to fear, financial abuse, and gaslighting and coercive control. I hope that my story can help others break free and find a life outside of abuse. So I loved this conversation with Mia, and I'm so grateful for it. I felt really just seen because even though mine wasn't partner abuse, it was a parental figure. Boy, the parallels they don't stop paralleling, you know what I mean? So make sure to check out the show notes for her links, a link to her website and all the things. Thank you, Mia, for your time. I had such a good conversation with you. And we'll just leave it there. Here we go. Here's me and Mia.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hey, I'm Justine Rhodes, host of Mentally a Badass, the podcast where we have the kind of conversation most people are too scared to have. We talk about mental health, identity, healing, and what it means to actually take care of yourself without the fluff. Our guests share stories that are wild, raw, sometimes hilarious, and sometimes heartbreakingly real. We dive into the stuff no one wants to say out loud: grief, trauma, shame, and even the awkward things like feeling like you're too much or not enough. But we don't just sit in the heavy. Every episode leaves you with something useful, real, actionable advice to help you move through your own stuff. If you're tired of surface level talk and ready for something deeper, check out Mentally a Badass wherever you get your podcast.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, sorry. That was a lot of drama. I thought I could, and you know what? I probably could have switched. I was trying not to use the headphones and see if I get a little less echo. You don't need to know all this, but anyway, it wasn't working. It wasn't working. So I was like, okay, we're going to use the headphones. Otherwise, can't use the mic, I guess. Okay, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank
So
you.
I was reading again on your profile, and you are a survivor of narcissistic abuse and the author of the award-winning book Bridemaid, a memoir. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And my brain's kind of not working very well today. I'm just really like exhausted and kind of struggling with allergies, but where do you want to start? Like, you want to just talk about the book, or, what do you want to do?
Whatever fits. I can talk about the book. I can talk about narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder. Really just any direction you want to take the conversation. I'm good.
Okay. Well, I am curious, I guess this is what I was wondering earlier, is like, how have you recovered from that?
Yeah, it's a journey. I think it takes time, and you sort of have to almost like rewire your brain. You've got to change the way that you think about things. For
Mhm.
so long, it was all about my ex-husband. It was everything was about him 24/7. And so as a victim, your self-care declines, and you really just you don't focus enough on yourself. So it's having to relearn how to take care of myself again. I think that's the probably one of the big struggles, and it just takes time.
Yeah, for sure. And what would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned in terms of how to take care of yourself?
That's a good question. I think really just listening to my body, and
Mhm.
taking care of when I'm tired, getting enough rest, and things that I never did when I was married.
Right.
Um, just taking care of my health too, and paying attention to if I'm not feeling well, or it's just being able to kind of tune into yourself.
Yes, and I love that, but you're bringing up a very good point that I make on here a lot, which is when you are a survivor of a situation that has removed choice and voice from you, you have had a lot of time to turn off to your intuition and you are completely disconnected from your body. So, did you find that the journey to being able to listen to your own voice and your body screaming at you when you had needs that needed to be met, did you find that to be difficult to kind of learn how to do?
Definitely. With a narcissist, you lose your voice. And
Mhm,
I think I didn't know how to listen to myself. I was so in tune to his moods, and
mhm.
his
Hypervigilance,
reactions,
yep,
hyper vigilant all the time. So I think it is taking me a while to learn how to trust myself. I
right,
was led to believe for 29 years of marriage that I could not manage on my own. So I'm
mhm.
having to learn how to trust myself and realize I don't have to second guess myself at every turn. And that's a journey of
God,
figuring
believe
out
me,
how
I
to do
know.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
I
It takes
totally get
time.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
and I think too, like, I wonder if I'm always questioning if this was a unique experience for me because I was raised by my narcissistic grandma. But not only did I second guess myself, I fully was in belief that every choice had two very distinct paths and that I was going to alter my future in a very significant way with each choice. And it would either be the right choice or the wrong choice. It wasn't just like this path leads to strawberries, this one leads to bananas. It was like, oh my God, this is such a stupid example. But when I was potty training my oldest, I legit, actually, probably both my boys, but I was like, oh my God, potty training is so serious. Like one wrong move and you've got a Jeffrey Dahmer as a child. Like, I'm so serious. I was like, if I do this wrong, like if I potty train in this way, is that the right way or this way? Because like if I choose wrong, I'm getting a serial killer for a child. Like I was so very set in that thought too. So did choice, I guess a better way to frame this, did choice lead you to catastrophic thinking?
Definitely. I was with a narcissist, and I think that what you were describing, a lot of people probably can relate to that, because narcissists tend to be very black and white.
Mhm.
There is no gray. It's either, and they tend to overreact to everything. So that was my ex-husband to a T. It was either the right choice or it was a complete catastrophe and the world's going to end. um
Right.
and so you find yourself at when I got out of that marriage. I did fear making the wrong choice. Oh, it could be the end of the world if I choose B over A, when in reality it would not be the end of the world. It's not
Right.
that big of a deal. So it was trying to kind of take myself off the edge all the time. Things are
Yeah.
not all black and white, and it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake. But I think with a narcissist, any mistake you make, whether, the tiniest thing, it is the end of the world to them. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a very probably something that anyone who has been with a narcissist can probably relate to that.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking, and it's not like this was like a full light bulb aha, but it was another confirmation to me that the reason we're so unsafe in those moments of choice and struggling with trusting ourselves is that disconnection from our body that was created through that abuse. And that is so much a part of learning to have vulnerable conversations, making choices. All of that is creating that safety within yourself, like grounding before you make a decision, grounding before you have vulnerable conversations. And it's not like that's new information, but I love whenever I can just confirm learning, like, oh, okay, yeah, that was another way that was sneaking up, and I can just create a really safe foundation for thoughts, feelings, and conversations.
Yeah, I think safe is the big word there, because with a narcissist, I would imagine most victims would say they never felt safe a single day in their life. Um, that's a big word, and I think that as victims, we're striving for that feeling of safety. We want to feel
Right.
safe. I always felt very unsafe, and I couldn't I couldn't necessarily pinpoint why I was feeling unsafe, but I knew I felt unsafe. But of course, being with a narcissist, I'm taught to ignore my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to think, well, yeah, I am feeling unsafe, but I'm probably just crazy. And that gaslighting, all the
Mm-hmm.
tactics that they use. So you do learn to not listen to yourself and not listen to your intuition.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to get very specific about who, but I had a lot of narcissistic family members on both sides. And I mean, because just both sides of my family were just full of dysfunction. And I remember one particular person who's very covert, did things to, around me, or I mean, you're going to know what I'm talking about, but like conversations that I would have with this family member in adolescence. And I would try to identify why it bothered me, because it was very manipulative and harmful language being used with me. And when I am coming back with, I don't necessarily like the way that feels, the gaslighting and then the circular talk, just
Yes.
the complete redirection. I can identify very specific moments that made me question my reality as an adolescent. And that is such the key that you have to learn when you're recovering from all of these things, is like, hey, they were the liar, not you. So, but all those years of us lying to ourselves, calling ourselves crazy or too sensitive in my case, like, am I too sensitive, or did you just say some really rude shit to me with the intention of being really rude and I responded accordingly, right? Like that,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm too sensitive. I think you're just a bitch. So,
Mhm.
but like that I forget sometimes that I have to acknowledge the root of that wound for me and why things are so hard. Still they're hard. Like today, I had to be vulnerable with someone. I don't like it. I will do everything I can to quote unquote fix my thinking about something before I will take the step to go share the feelings with someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
That's so much the struggle.
Yeah, it is. And you do feel like, I was always told the same. You're too sensitive. There's something wrong with you. And if something that he did or said upset me and I brought it up to him, his
Mhm.
response would always be, well, a normal person would not have
Oh.
had that kind of reaction.
Mhm.
And so then you start asking yourself, well, am I blowing this out of proportion?
Uh-huh.
And that's really where I landed for my entire marriage, thinking, well, I guess I'm just blowing this out of proportion. It's not really that bad, because my ex-husband is a covert narcissist. So to the outside world, he looks amazing. He is
Uh-huh.
kind and generous. He's empathetic. He's just this all around husband of the year. So you've got all these people on the outside that would never believe you if you said no. He's controlling, he's manipulative, he's abusive. So that
Uh-huh.
feeds into, well, am I overblowing the situation? Am I making too much of it? Maybe I just need to, be okay with how he's treating me. So it really messes with your mind.
Absolutely. And just to that point, even if like I wouldn't call my husband a narcissist, but he has some real emotional immaturity in certain areas because he's very conflict adverse, right? So I can remember kind of complaining about certain things to friends that then because he is quiet and he's soft, that they are like, he's the best thing that's ever happened to you and blah blah blah. And he's not a good husband, but there are lots of things where I've been very valid in the way I felt, but because I'm the loud one in my house, that's always the center of conversation, right? It's like, oh, I got it. Because I
Yeah.
mean, listen, I'm going to be very fair and say, like, I had a ton of narcissistic traits from being raised around narcissists. Like, I
Yes.
didn't know, so like, yeah, I fucked up a lot. I'm not going to say I still do. Like, I'm okay with that now, but I carried a lot of shame because I'm like, oh my God, I hurt people. Like, but there were so many times I was justified. My reaction wasn't, but like how I was feeling, I was justified. And people around me are like, what? Like, Brian's so sweet. And I'm like, Brian is sweet, but sometimes he's an emotional idiot and it causes me pain. And I'm allowed to say that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Well,
so frustrating.
you're conditioned when you're with a narcissist to think that you can't say how you're feeling. It's not
Right.
acceptable. It's not,
Yeah,
that's
because
just not the way it works. Yeah.
right, because I did, like, I remember, and I'm sorry, audience, I've told this story before, but I have to tell you, Mia. Okay, so like my grandma, when I say she was a narcissist, like I'm not. This isn't conjecture. It's not like
Right.
hyperbole. Like, she was a narcissist, and I remember I had my first kid, so I was in my early 20s, and I said, Grandma, I mean, I had to work up so much nerve to say this, and it was over the phone. And I said, Grandma, it really hurt my feelings when you did this. And oh, she flipped her shit. And this is
They
like
will.
the first time in my life that I have said to her, something you did has impacted me negatively. Because I knew better, right? I held it all in
Right.
all those
Right.
years. But she flipped her shit. And she's like, well, I am sure that so and so, and so it starts listing like my aunts and uncles and other brothers and whatever. And like, I am sure I have done things to bother them, but they just get over it and move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those are her words. And I was like, okay. And I was so unhealthy at that time and still was like pretty sure. But see, I was like starting like really serious college education at the time. And so my background, my education is in social work. So like I was like getting, some good information and realizing like something ain't right. And it's okay to say like, you're being a bitch. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even say you're being a bitch. I said you're hurting my feelings. And like just sitting there like, I don't know how you can possibly think that's like the right thing to say right now,
Yeah. 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 They don't take criticism. So
Mm-mm.
if you call them out on something they've done that's hurtful, that is not acceptable. It's not on their agenda. It's not in their playbook. And
Uh-huh.
that's when that circular talking starts. If you go to them with an issue that you're having with them, by the end of the conversation, and it's probably a lengthy conversation. In my case, that's how it always worked. And by the end of this lengthy conversation, I ended up feeling like the stupid one. And what it does is it makes you just not want to bring up issues. It's not worth it. It's not worth the time you're going to have to spend being lectured about why you're wrong. The lectures could go for hours in my house about why I was wrong and why he was right. And it's so exhausting. It's so emotionally draining that you really reach a point where you think, it's just not worth it. I'm just not going to bring it up. I'm just going to stay quiet. And it's kind of the lesser of two evils, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I will say that really carried over into every relationship I've ever had in adulthood, both intimate and just friendships, because, I was attracted to me a lot of really emotionally unavailable people. So it's not like my experience with sharing my feelings with them went a whole lot better. For one, I went into those conversations very scared and also defensive. But for two, it just confirmed every single time there is no point in telling people when they hurt you, because nobody I've ever, up to a certain time in my life, probably the last year, nobody up to in the last year of my life, anytime I did go to them to say it. And in it, I worked really hard at doing it in a way that, this was one of my narcissistic traits, that I delivered it perfectly to where you could not poke a hole in it and say I did anything wrong with the way I expressed it, anything. And yet still, every time I was just met with either, well, here's all the things you've done wrong, or you're too sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you just learn that it's easier not to bring things up, which is a very unhealthy way to live, because then you're just bottling all of that up. So there's a learning curve there to figuring out for me, it was about how do you take those walls down? I tend to want to be extremely guarded. I wouldn't say I'm paranoid, but I question everyone's motives. I tend to not trust people because of this 29-year marriage to a covert narcissist, and I know that I have personality traits that are attractive to narcissists. I tend to be a people pleaser. I tend to be somebody who is willing to take all of the guilt, all of the blame, even when it's not, when I didn't do it. I'm somebody I'm eager to please. And so unfortunately, that is makes me a target for these types of people. I mean, they're looking for someone they can control, and somebody with really strong boundaries, who is just, a more of a stronger person. They're going to shy away from people like that.
Right.
Because they don't see them as someone they can manipulate. So knowing that about myself, it does tend to make me a lot more guarded.
Yes. And I would say there have been times that I was really paranoid, like meeting new people, especially. Now, some of that was intuitive and I had a right to run, but there have been times when a perfectly innocent person is doing just normal human shit, and I'm over here over analyzing and, putting them in a box and like, oh, I'm going to run now because you're probably not a good person. And making that determination really early on from things that I was creating red flags around that weren't necessarily there.
Right.
And I also, I'm still really struggling to say to people how I'm feeling. Very much so, because when I say now that I can get a different response, I don't mean from most people. Like, I don't even really maintain close friendships with people who don't allow me to do that anymore. But there are people who, through just their own ignorance, respond in a way, and I mean, shit, what I've recognized is I do too. I'm incredibly defensive and sensitive and whatever, and I will assign a bunch of meaning to the words that come out of your mouth, and before I get curious and ask questions. I was just having a conversation right before we started with my husband about like, hey, here's a way you can help me to remember, like, when you say something, I need to ask questions because I always think it means this, but like there's a workable solution usually, but I don't let us get there because I'm like, oh, you're just blah blah blah, you're just telling me da da da.
Yeah.
So like I do that a lot, but it's because I don't know how many more confirmations I can receive of you don't get to say when your feelings are hurt, that and then still like have a faith in relationships, like and
Right.
friendships, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I know for me, I tend to be very careful who I surround myself with,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just certain types of people I don't want to associate with anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like kind of coming out of this marriage, I sort of drew a line and said, this type of personality does not work with me. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I tend to be very um I don't know, I probably come across as very aloof, but I am very picky about who I let in my circle. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very few people. And I'm okay with that. I think a lot of people think you've got to have this big circle and you've got to have all these people. And I've really found in the last year, you don't. I mean, I'm okay with
Right.
a small circle of what I consider to be safe people.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't need a whole lot of people around me. So it has really, being with a narcissist, it really does kind of dictate moving forward how you interact with people and who
Yeah,
you let in and how guarded or unguarded you are.
absolutely. And like for me, one of the things that's determining safety for who I spend time with, um is the types of conversations that they want to have with me, because I, like everyone else until we heal, especially women, we were programmed to socialize by talking shit or complaining. And I have said this 100 times, like I was one of them. I did it too, and perpetuated gossip and shit talk and lots of toxic negativity. But now I don't want to do any of that. And so it limits who I'm around significantly, because I don't know a lot of people who want to just sit and talk real deep all the time. But the people who do, I cherish, because I don't I love to talk about updates in my life and updates in their life and like go a good back and forth. Like I have a friend who we're walking and that's what we do the whole time. I don't mind that. It's not a vent. It's a, oh my gosh, this happened, da da da. But when we start getting into mean girl shit or just nonstop bitching about something with no real solution,
Mhm.
that's not good for my spirit. And I don't want to live in that place. So my circle is extremely small, and I thought it was small before, but
Yeah.
it is so small because I I feel really unsafe in those conversations, because I don't feel like the real authentic me that's wanting to have, to really connect in those moments has the safety to do that, because I've just learned people don't want to go there a lot, like they're
Yeah.
not as interested in the personal development that I am. So they're going to stay where they are and look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't take any of that personally anymore, but I used to. And again, it just starts chipping away at your safety and what you feel like you need or don't need. And I just don't second guess that stuff anymore, because I'm like, well, I guess I kind of do, because you know, I really, my avoidance of emotion made me push people away at the first feeling of rejection.
Yeah.
and really quickly. So I guess I do second guess sometimes, like, oh, am I doing that thing? Because anytime I've pushed someone away, I wasn't conscious of the fact that I was just doing it because I felt rejected or was afraid that they would reject me. So I'm always trying to figure out, like, is this that ick that I get from like a feeling of expectations from someone that I'm afraid I can't meet? Or is it me feeling rejected, or is this legitimately? So I guess sometimes I do still struggle with that type of choice.
Yeah, and I think, for me, being married for nearly 3 decades to a narcissist, I mean, I feel like, uh, in some respect, it's like that wasn't fair, right?
Mhm.
That I had to spend all those years feeling all those feelings, and so now I'm like, okay, this is my time now. This is my time to be able to say how I feel, and to
Mhm.
say this is what I want and this is what I don't want. And so I try to focus on that. Like, now it's my time. I got out of that. I gave so much of myself to this narcissist, and now
Mhm.
it's sort of me time. So but then, and that definitely plays into, like, again, who I let in my circle. I only want those people in my circle that I want. I want to
Mhm.
choose who's in my close friend circle. So but then I start feeling like, well, am I being too selfish?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
start feeling like, should I feel guilty? Am I being too selfish? Am I being too, am I not being friendly enough to people? Am I, but yeah, we've got to give ourselves some room to, I mean, it's, after you've endured something like that for so long, you do need to take time for yourself and figure out what you want, not what everybody else wants.
Absolutely. And I think that just goes along with the good girl people pleaser stuff, where we
Yeah.
start to be like, oh, is this a time when I need to make someone else more comfortable and disregard my own comfort? Because that's always actually what we're asking ourselves.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I'm like, okay, let me remember that's the words I'm not saying to myself, but that I am very subconsciously thinking. And actually, because whenever I put that into conscious, I'm like, oh, well, that's an easy choice. I'm always going to choose my comfort now
Yeah.
because, like, I really want to rebrand the word selfish because I'm so fucking tired of people acting like it's selfish to care the most about you. But like, every ounce of my life force is born from me, and it is me that gives it out to the world. So if I want to make an impact in this world or just live a happy existence, I have to be selfish. I have
You
to.
do.
We all
You do.
do.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and with a narcissist, they everything you do, the tiniest thing you do for yourself is deemed as selfish.
Hmm.
Um, in fact, I can't count how many times my ex-husband said to me during our marriage, "You are so selfish," and that would be, I would be so offended. That would hurt me so much, and I would think, oh, because
Hmm.
I don't want to be selfish. Um, Anything that I did, it was met with, "You are so selfish," when in fact, I was the opposite of selfish. I was giving to him. I was not giving to myself ever.
Yeah.
So now, even like the tiniest thing, I do tend to, I hear his voice in my head, "You're
Yep.
being so selfish." And I have to realize, no, I'm not. I'm taking care of myself. And there's no harm in taking care of yourself. You're making yourself better for others, so you can be out there helping others or whatever. It starts with you, and yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, man. My grandma, I don't know if in a marriage it's the same way, but in like my nuclear family, it was very much comparisons about how I was selfish, but my younger brother was so selfless.
Yeah.
Even though Mia, he's the one over here not trying to make her happy with his every action like I was. And he, like, he did drugs really young. He ran away. And my older brother did too, but she didn't make the comparisons very much, unless she was like, you're just like him, which she liked to say too. But I'm over here, my every breath is spent trying to live up to this eternal debt of gratitude that she has placed on my shoulders because she raised me, and it is now my burden to carry for eternity, that I make sure she understand and feel my gratitude for that. But she would be like, she would say like my little brother had a better heart than me. Like she just knew which words
Yeah.
that were gonna like tear me up inside. And when you want to talk about lectures, oh my God, the way a narcissist lectures, which I have done, but is unmatched. It's hours, and it's just a
Yes.
triggered stream of thought that just, they're not even conscious of what they're saying at a certain
No,
point, because
they
it's
are
just
not.
coming out of their mouth. They wouldn't even remember the conversation when it's over, because they have said so much dumb shit over a 2-hour period. And I remember, because it was my grandma, I would have to sit and make my face look like, yes, I am remorseful for being a fucking piece of shit.
Right.
I am taking in the information. And I did that for years, where I was very schooled with my facial expressions. Like
Yes.
you were not good at, like, I was very good at hiding my emotions. Now I don't care. So like, I'm an open book. You can see it on my face. I'm not gonna hide it, whatever. That was actually the first step towards like reclaiming power, was like, I don't have to hide my facial expressions. If you're saying something stupid, I can indicate that with my face. But she was awful. I mean, the narcissistic lectures, I am never going to forget that. And then even conversely, with the covert narcissist in my family, same shit, different topics. It wasn't telling me necessarily what a piece of shit I was in the way that she did, but it was very circular. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And always with plausible deniability, so that if I were to say, that feels yucky that you just spent 2 hours talking about that with me. What are you talking about? I never did this. I did, like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, the circular, it's crazy how long you would think, isn't that exhausting to them, to sit and lecture for so long? I mean, it's I can say, being on the receiving end, it's exhausting to listen to.
Yes.
It's exhausting to listen to. And, you think they could say everything they need to say in about 3 sentences, but they will drag it out for hours. And I thought that was a unique thing that I experienced. But as I've been researching narcissism and talking to so many people, it's not unique at all. It is something that they do. And why these lengthy lectures, I don't know. It's crazy, but it's all circular talk. And they may only be trying to make one tiny point, but they will stretch it out for hours. And it's just, I don't think I could do that if I tried. So I find it fascinating that so many people have experienced that same thing with a narcissist.
Yes. Now, I will say, with that being one of the traits that I had that only really was exhibited in my marriages, this is my second marriage. The times I have done that, I think it's fueled by hyper arousal. It's a fear, like they're in fear mode.
Yeah.
And you're in survival mode. You're over here. It's all protection. And I had to learn, that it wasn't okay. Like I honestly didn't know how damaging I was behaving. And it took a lot of healing to be like, oh, okay. But it actually started, like, I knew I didn't want to be that way with my kids. Right. So when they were teenagers, the boys, I have a younger one too, but I was like, okay, if I don't want to be like that, what do I want? And I was like, oh, okay, I need to nail it down to a very precise, either this was an expectation that I had that you didn't meet, and therefore this is how we're going to move, or something, a piece of information that I really needed to impart on them. I would get it in my head, like, this needs to be about 1.5 to 3 sentences, and that's it. That's all anybody hears anyway. And
Right.
I want it to be very direct. I don't want to assign morality or meaning or emotion to their behavior. I just want to say very directly and clearly, I'm not okay with that. And this is what I need you to know. And then I was like, oh, probably need to do that with my husband too. I've been a real bitch. And so I did recognize in hindsight, like, shit, I did a lot of that. Damn. But I wasn't, surprisingly, I really just didn't realize that I was doing that Or even as I started to realize I was doing that, I was like, what is causing that? And it really was just working through the triggers, but also learning how to ground and create safety within before I even bring up something. So now, even with my husband, I'm like, hey, I don't like that, or I need to come up with a solution for this, or whatever. But I did the same thing.
Well, and I think it's learned behavior. I think when you're being raised by a narcissist, it certainly doesn't make you a narcissist to be raised by a narcissist, but you do learn narcissistic behavior.
Yes.
And so that's the tricky part, is being able to recognize and unlearn those things, because that's all you do, and with my kids growing up, that's what they knew. That's what they saw in their father. Fortunately, they didn't see it in me. So they had, two different personality types they were working with. But yeah, it is. You do, you imitate, kids imitate what they see. And if that's ingrained in you, that's how you talk to somebody, that you do it in a lecture format that goes for hours, it's what you know. So yeah, it's hard to break that, I think.
Absolutely. God, it was so tough. I was glad when I finally recognized it, because the thing is it did take a lot of energy from me too. And there was never a resolution, because that was the confusing part for me too, being on the other end of it, where I'm now the lecturer, was like, well, baby, I thought the point was to get you to do what I wanted, because that's why I thought my grandma was doing it. So like, now you're still not doing what I want. I don't understand. I just spent 2 hours of my life on this shit and I still don't get control.
Yeah. I mean, and it's all about control. The other thing that I think narcissists do, one of the reasons they do these lengthy lectures, is in an attempt to break you down. And another thing that tactic they use is they like to keep you fatigued. Sounds crazy, but they do. They lack of sleep deprivation, anything that wears you down, it lowers your defenses, and it makes you easier to control. So keep you in a lecture for 2-3 hours, chances are they're going to get what they want by the end of that lecture, because you're going to be so worn down that you're just going to say, okay, whatever, and I would end up taking blame for, things I didn't say, just to get out of the conversation. You just say, yeah, I'm terrible. I know I shouldn't have said that, or whatever. And it's all my fault and I accept it, just so you can exit the conversation.
Yes.
So it is a insidious form of control.
Yeah. And I can remember the self-loathing I would feel. Like, I'm just this kid sitting here listening to what a piece of shit I am, and I don't know what to do with that. So I'm like, man, nothing I do is enough for my grandma. Like, and she's so nice that she raised me, and I'm over here making her life so hard. Bitch, you're making your own life hard.
You're
making your own life hard.
Yeah. And like you said, when you said nothing's ever enough, that is so true. With a narcissist, nothing is ever enough. You can give them the sun and the moon, and it's not going to be enough. There's always going to be, well, but you could have done this. It's never, you can't ever be good enough. It's, you're almost good enough, and you're always almost, you never actually are who they want you to be. You're never enough. You're never good enough. And that's frustrating.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, I mean, no wonder I felt so unsafe, because like, there was no quote unquote unconditional love. Now there were those words,
Right.
but you know how they say it too, like, who else do you know that's gonna love you?
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
even my own grandma
Yes.
said that shit. Like, look at your parents. They left. Like, they're drug addicts. They chose drugs over you. And I'm the one who stepped in to take care of you when they did that. And then look, your grandpa left me and you. So here we are. It's just me. I am all you have.
Yeah. Nobody else could ever be as good to you as they can be. And they like to remind you of that.
Mm-hmm.
You have such a great life with me. Look at what all I can provide for you. Look what I do for you. And they want you to be in this mindset that you are so indebted to them, that you
Yep.
are so dependent on them. They don't want you to be independent. So dependent,
No.
so indebted. You need me to be able to survive. You can't do this on
Uh-huh.
your own. It's the same narrative across the board, whether it be a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic coworker, a spouse. It's the same playbook that they're working from, and it's amazing how different types of relationships you see those same qualities.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I moved out. I turned 18 in June and moved out in like August 1st. And that was my first step, obviously, toward independence and breaking away from her. But I can remember the level of, she kicked my older brother out when he was like 16 and never thought a thing about it. She was actually pretty cold and heartless about him. But with me, she wanted me to depend on her, right?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
like I was absolutely the golden child and she wanted me to stay in this certain role for her. Well, when I was moving out, she was like so upset about it. So she's being a bitch and being like, you'll be back. And little did she know I would have been back if she hadn't said that.
If she hadn't said it.
If she had never said that, there were definitely times in the very near future from that date of moving out that I really could have used some support and like moved back home. But I was like, I'll be fucking sleeping in my car before I ever move back home. And I never did because I was like, oh, hell no. That like I am breaking one little piece of this chain off because you are not going to continue to tell me I can't survive without you. And then the more boundaries I started to place, it wasn't until my first divorce when I was just beaten. Like he was not like a bad guy, but divorce is hard no matter what. And I'm
Right.
now the mother of 2 small kids, getting a divorce, trying to figure out why the fuck my life is so fucked up. What am I responsible for? Whatever. And I just didn't have the energy to appease her anymore. So I'd have to say no to things or just avoid her because I didn't want to say no and she was going to like ask me to do shit. But boy, when the golden child with a narcissist starts to place boundaries, you become the black sheep really fast.
Yeah.
And boy, the explosive nature of her personality really came to front then when I started to say no and show like getting degrees, which she referred to as pieces of paper, and still tried to convince me to go be an administrative assistant somewhere. And I'm like, or I'll just go be a fucking social worker. Like I just got the 2 degrees for, like, what? But
Yeah.
it was like always finding a way to diminish my accomplishments because I could do those without her,
Yeah, right. They don't want you to be able to succeed in anything unless they play a part in it. So, yeah, and it's just like when you leave a narcissistic spouse and they pull out all the stops to try to get you to come back.
Mhm.
And I had a therapist say, if you go back, it will get worse. And I, probably the same with you. Had you gone back, you may not have gotten out again. I mean, you may have been dependent forever at that point, because at that point you've let them win. They've won.
Yes.
So,
And then and what part of my victory am I ever going to get back to let myself know like I can do this without her?
yeah.
Otherwise
yeah.
I would have believed probably that I couldn't. I would have believed her. Like, you're right. I can't. I proved I can't do it without. Now, I will say the solution for me was go shack up with a boy who could help me, and then I married his ass and married him for all the wrong reasons. But like, so for me, I still think it was a much better choice than moving back home.
Than going back home. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think once you go back to a narcissist once, it's pretty near impossible to get out a second time.
Absolutely.
So,
And you know what? And I think that's why I have so much more compassion through my healing for my little brother who I was resentful of my entire fucking life. Because of those comparisons,
Yes.
But he kind of didn't get out. He left her house a few times for less than a year each time, but always went back. And in hindsight, I remember some of the really mean shit she would say to him too. And he didn't have any sort of grounding like I did. Like I had really good women come into my path organically that knew I was enmeshed in this relationship, and they couldn't talk shit about her to me, but they would drop little seeds of thought of it's okay to care about yourself, it's okay to have boundaries, things
Yeah.
like that, to where like I was like, oh, and then I could look to them to be like, huh, how are they living, because they make me feel like this, and how can I pattern myself after that better instead of like this, where my brother just didn't have anything like that,
Yeah.
because of a lot of the choices that he made in adolescence and young adulthood. Our family turned their back on him because they were also a product of my grandma. And so those relationships were always really complicated anyway. But I have so much compassion for him because she beat him down. I know the things that she said to him when she was angry are the reason that he did feel like, I can't do this without her. And then since she died, it's been a real struggle for him. It really has. And I wish like I had I would love to help, but it's like he doesn't listen to me because I'm just his big sister. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. They do want to keep you dependent. And if you, once you break that tie with them, I think it's important that you keep it broken.
Very. And I didn't like go full no contact with her or anything like that, but it was pretty low contact, and it wasn't even a conscious choice. It was just trying to cultivate any ounce of peace that I could at that part of my life, because she died in 2015. But working through, because I didn't even admit out loud to anyone else in my life that I didn't like the way I was treated when I grew up until I was like 29 years old.
Wow.
Never once did I talk bad about her, because the fear that she put into me about that one thing specifically, like, don't talk about me. Like I've only been to therapy, like to one therapist ever. I didn't ever talk about her because I was too scared. But she would accuse me. She'd be like, I know you talked to your therapist about me. And I'd be like, bitch, actually I don't, because I'm fucking scared like to talk about you. Yeah. But I mean, and like the covert narcissist in my family that I was referring to, I still don't really say much about them, because you know how it is when a narcissist can't control you, they want to control the narrative around you. And anytime, even to this day, people from that subsect of my family, if we have a mutual acquaintance and that person tells them they know me, they get very afraid and start to just unleash shit about me, like from childhood. Like, like, okay, listen, I was a little lying face exaggerator child when I was a kid, okay? And the fact that anybody would hold that against me as an adult is ludicrous. But yet they will really go in on the, oh, well, I mean, Missy's kind of crazy, you're friends with her, huh? You know what I mean? Shit like that. And I'm like, and I've had people come to me in adulthood and say that, and I'm like, listen, I don't give a fuck, and I'm not going to waste any energy on that. So I will ask you not to repeat to me anything else that they say to you. You are in a position to where you can do whatever you want with whatever they've told you. And if you have any questions for me, contrary to what they say, I'm an open book, and I'll be happy to tell you what is true and what is not true. But I don't give a shit that they feel this way about me, that they talk about me. But at the same time, I don't need all the flying monkeys. You know what I mean? Because it's really this one person and then all her flying monkeys, and I don't need it. I don't need it. So I don't do it.
That's hard. I'm having to let acquaintances, quote unquote friends, go because they are in that position of a flying monkey. I mean, you really have to just realize that it's happening, and you just have to be okay with it. You just have to be okay with letting that person think what they want to think, because the smear campaign is real. It is real.
Yes. Yeah, and that is not something that people understand unless they've gone through it, because
No.
it took a really long time for me to even connect the dots that that's what was happening, because I was just like, you know why? Because I was under the belief that I was everything they were saying I was. I
Yeah.
carried shame, real shame over shit from childhood. Like, nobody should sit in adulthood hating everything about themselves over dumb shit they did as a kid. Nobody.
Right. Nobody.
Do dumb shit. I'm sorry, my allergies are killing
That's
me.
okay.
But once I made that connection, I was like, oh shit, you know what? This is them trying, because they're afraid of what I'm going to say about them. They're
Yeah.
afraid. And so they're already starting the character attack, so that if I do tell you something, you're not going to believe it.
Right.
I'm not saying shit because I don't talk about them, because they don't mean shit to me. So
Right.
like, I let them go a long time ago, and I don't care. They have made many attempts to be back in my life, and I don't need them or want them or have a single ounce of desire to ever have a relationship. So for me, it would rob me of peace to sit and just like gossip with a mutual acquaintance about how terrible of people they actually are. First of
Yeah.
all, they are very good at what they do. You're not going to be convinced by anything I say, because
Right.
they are very good at making people believe they are good people. They're fucking not. And
Yeah.
I know that, but I don't care. Like, go be with them, and Godspeed to you. I hope that they don't do that to you. But like, I don't care about it, so I don't even talk about them. And if I do, it is in a very veiled way, the way I am now, because it's not fucking worth it,
Right.
like, but I don't spend any time really thinking about them unless I'm describing the narcissistic abuse I received from them. And it's crazy, like the shit that they did. And again, the gaslighting with you're too sensitive, because like, God, when you said let normal people, I fucking heard that too.
Mm-hmm.
A normal person would probably just blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know why you're taking what I said that way. And I mean, like, with a healthy person, like, let's say my husband and I are having that conversation. One of us is going to say, like, man, I am so sorry that is how you are like feeling about what I said. Can I clear up what I meant?
Yeah.
And not like, well, your idiot is showing. It's on full display now, so you may want to cover it up.
Yeah. I think, like, back to the whole smear campaign and stuff, we do just have to be, and that's part of the healing, right? To just be okay to let all that go, let those people go, and not care what they're saying about you. I mean, I know my ex-husband's out there talking about me, and I have to, and that's hard though. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, just don't care about it.
Right.
Well, I do care though, but
yeah,
I have to realize that it's fine, it's going to happen, and I have to move on. So there's such a better life on the other side of this abuse, and so that's what I'm focusing on.
absolutely. And you know what, Mia, I just want to say this. When you said it surprised you to see they're all the same, no matter what relationship pattern you're in, I may be realizing that to its full extent for the first time in this conversation. Like, I wouldn't have imagined that a person who had a spouse as a narcissist would feel so much like I feel, and have the same lasting issues after, the fears, the all of it. And I'm grateful to have had this conversation with you, because again, I love confirmations of my learning and new ways to integrate the learning. And I know that this is going to be really impactful for people who listen, because they may not even recognize that they've been a victim of narcissistic abuse. They really may not. I have clients that I'm like, hey, like, I just need you to know, like, I'm not going to diagnose anyone in your life, but this is what I'm seeing.
Right.
And the eye-opening conversations that happen around that. And I know it took me a very, 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 very long time to be able to label those experiences appropriately, and not just as normal, I did something wrong and received this punishment kind of thing. It really was narcissistic abuse from all of those people. And I hope that this conversation allows people to dig a little deeper into their own experiences, and maybe even to see the way that I had to see about myself, that I did carry on and perpetuate a lot of those behaviors, and that I had to relearn how to be a human who doesn't hurt others unintentionally, and do all of the same patterns that I was put through. And so I hope that this conversation will shed light on all of those situations for people to kind of understand themselves better and their experiences better.
Yeah, I hope that, people listening, if this sounds like something that they're living with, you really do need to do your homework, look, dig a little deeper, look into this, because it is real, and it is a form of abuse. And, it's not something you want to stay in. If you're in it, you need to start planning a way out, because like I say, life on the other side of this is so much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Mia, so much for being on here. I will make sure to include links to your book and
Okay.
any social media that you have created or whatever's on your profile. I'll make sure to include it.
Yeah, please do. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was nice to meet you.
Absolutely. You too. I'd love to stay connected too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And yeah, let me know when the episode's going to air.
I sure will. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, make sure you've given the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to if you haven't already. And check out my website, empoweredwithmelissahepner.org, or my link tree on Instagram at melissa.hepner to check out my latest offers or workshops.
Emotionally unavailable.
All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.